Supplement Education for Military Members, Darcy Jo Kruse, MS, Doctoral Candidate, California University of Pennsylvania. It's estimated that over 60% of military members are currently using or have consistently used a supplement in the past, with this number reaching 74% for certain demographics within the military. Through interviews with a human performance expert working with the Marine Corps, this course will discuss supplement use in the military to include reasons why this use is disproportionately high, dissect supplement regulation and labeling, and determine best practices when educating military members on supplement choice and use.
My name is Heather Williams. I am the Human Performance Supervisor for Camp Pendleton. We are the largest Marine Corps base in America. So we have about 70,000 active duty Marines, and then we have their families and the retiree population that we service. I have been in this role for 6 years, going on 7. And then prior to that, I was a health coach under the same department for 2 years. So in total, I've been with the Marine Corps population for about 9 years.
What types of services do you offer as the Human Performance Department?
We do a lot of the fitness assessments that you'll see on Camp Pendleton. So that includes resting metabolic rate measurements. We do VO2 max testing, body fat assessments. We cover tobacco cessation. We also, new areas that we are now covering are sleep hygiene and cognitive performance. We're really excited about that and to kind of bring a different element of health to the table. And then the Marines are responsible to have a certain amount of training throughout the year. So my department is responsible for more of the educational aspect of that. We will travel out to the unit and provide trainings or briefings, as we call them, for the units.
So our focus today is going to be more on the nutrition and supplement side of that. So we're going to kind of maybe focus first on supplement use in the military and what that looks like. So from your experience, you know, the rate of supplement use within military members versus the civilian demographic, how does this compare, and what type of a rate of supplement use do you see with the people you come into contact with?
It's a lot. Well, first, we get a lot of our information from the Health Related Behavior Survey. And according to that survey, about 61% of male Marines are currently using dietary supplements, and about 76% of the Air Force, females in the Air Force are using dietary supplements, which is, it's a huge, huge number. And when you compare that to the civilian sector, at about 53% of civilians are utilizing dietary supplements, I mean, it's quite a bit higher within the military population than it is in the civilian sector.
Absolutely, that's a big jump for sure. What are some of the more commonly used supplements within the military? What types of things are they taking?
Well, speaking on the Marine Corps, protein powder, bodybuilding, fish oils, joint health, and weight loss are the most common. And in that order by use. It is mirrored across all branches of the military. The rates vary a little bit by age, gender, and rank. What we see is more males use the protein powder, the fish oils, the bodybuilding, and the joint health, while females surpass them in the herbal, the weight loss, and the weight loss supplements. And then what we see too across ages, we have the younger service members who, about the 18 to 34-year-olds, use more of the protein powders and the bodybuilding supplements than the older service members. However, the older service members, anybody 34 and up, they are using more of the joint health and the fish oil. Kind of, you know, we can see that, it's logical. And there's a fairly even distribution across herbal weight loss in regards to age.
Okay, it's definitely interesting to see the shift as they age a bit there.
Yeah.
Is there any formal training or education available for military members regarding supplements specifically, or do you know where they're getting their information when they're selecting a supplement or choosing to start one?
So in terms of formal education, that's really within my department, the Human Performance Division. Like I said, we provide educational briefings to company and battalion levels. We cover performance nutrition and injury prevention, which are core subjects for my department. And this includes supplement education. So what we do is we educate them on what to look for when choosing a dietary supplement, where to go to find legitimate information that pertains to them as the service member. And usually we will explore Operation Supplement Safety, which if you're familiar, it's the Uniformed Services University has a department called CHAMP. And from CHAMP, they stem two sites. One is the Human Performance Resource Center, and the other being Operation Supplement Safety. So that is right now the gold standard for all things supplements and the warfighter.
Gotcha. Do they provide any information in regards to banned supplements or substances for specific for military members?
Yeah, so the verbiage in that is really important. There is not a banned or prohibited supplement. There are, however, prohibited ingredients that manufacturers will use inside of their product. And the list that OPSS and all of the DoD follows is the FDA's Dietary Supplement Ingredient Advisory List. But it does, through OPSS and with our service members, it is an extended list. There's a lot of items on there that are just considered high risk to maybe a civilian sector, but will be prohibited to a service member. Other items would include things like CBD or hemp products. Those are strictly prohibited for the active duty member, especially in the Marine Corps, but they might be sold legally in a civilian sector.
Gotcha. So definitely the service member needs to be a bit more aware of reading that ingredient label or checking out what their supplement has for ingredients within it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We try to just, do the best we can and have them be as diligent as they can when picking a dietary supplement. And that's a large part of what we do, is just trying to open their eyes to not all supplements are good, not all are bad, but we have to know what to look for and how to look for it.
Absolutely. So maybe versus, educating them that you shouldn't take anything, be more informed and be more aware of what you're taking.
Absolutely. In my experience, when you tell somebody not to do something, that's likely the first thing that they're going to do. And when early in my career, I think that was the more of the approach that I had a tendency to take. But now I've learned that they're going to do it. We just need them to make an informed choice when they are taking supplements. And instead of maybe listening to leadership or, the guy next to him and what they're doing, we want them to have an educated background going into supplements.
Sure. What is your perception in regards to why they are seeking out supplements?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. And it's probably, a multi-layered response, but I do feel that there is a pressure for the service members to perform at a high level, and there's a stigma attached to the uniform, especially in the Marine Corps. It's unacceptable to be weak, and their culture is so deeply ingrained within them, and the way in which they receive information, like I just alluded to, and the education is usually from their leadership or members of the service who have more years under their belt. It's rarely from a medical professional or a healthcare professional. And so what we see is these older Marines provide guidance or advice to the younger service members. And again, that advice doesn't always align with what we might see in the health realm. And on top of that, we have weight standards in the Marine Corps, which is a complete beast of its own in this culture. If the Marines do not meet the standards, they could face repercussions that could end their career. So there's a high level of stress for them to fit a certain build and maintain a certain weight. And most of the time, they will go to extremes in order to make weight. I think that there's just a lack of education on properly fueling your body for the type of athlete that you are. And preparing food as well. About 60%, a little over 60% of the Marine Corps is under the age of 25. And for the most part, these individuals, this is the first time that they're out on their own. They have a paycheck, and they are not really relying on the chow hall for their meals. They're choosing to find meals from fast food vendors or elsewhere. So they're engaging in terrible health practices, and this is across the entire Marine Corps. Health practices like tobacco use, it's nearly twice the rate of a civilian sector. Excessive alcohol consumption, especially in our 18 to 24-year-olds, those are our highest risk population. And then we see a lot of really huge energy drinks are really prevalent in this population. So we know they're not fueling their bodies properly, they're just not making wise food choices, but they're excessively exercising. And we have individuals exercising for upwards of 3 hours a day, which is, you might see that on a collegiate level, but usually those athletes have, a ton of resources that the Marines just, they don't have or they're not utilizing. So when we're chronically underfueling, they're chronically underfueling during the week, and they're binging on the weekends. It's kind of the trend that we see. So they're turning to supplements to aid them in recovery, energy, and weight loss instead of food. And I really think that just boils down to a lack of education, misinformation, and they just mimic what they're seeing around them.
Yeah, definitely seems like that perfect storm of, first time out on your own, don't really know how to take care of yourself. There's these high demands and high pressure on you to perform at a certain level. And then that supplement is kind of a nice way to fill in the gaps where they're lacking in those other healthy habits of behaviors.
Absolutely.
So shifting gears a little bit and talking supplements in general and your experience in regards to the regulation and the labeling. Mm-hmm. I know you mentioned that you're really trying to just educate them to make informed decisions, but are supplements regulated the same way as a food product would be in regards to what they can put in and where they can be manufactured?
So the shortest answer would be no, they're not. So supplements are not regulated the same as food products. The FDA does provide some oversight on dietary supplements along with the Federal Trade Commission. Both food and supplements do fall under the Federal Food and Drug and Cosmetics Act. And the act defines the standards and definitions of what's considered a food versus a dietary supplement. And within that act, there's a statute called DSHEA. It's the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, and that better defines what a dietary supplement ingredient is, and then what action the FDA can take against manufacturers who don't follow the act. So food has a stricter set of definitions and standards and has to be generally recognized as safe, and without any question, it has to be generally recognized as safe. A drug, which falls under the same act, it must have proven evidence of efficacy and known safety, whereas a dietary supplement is not required to show evidence of efficacy or safety. So if there is a new dietary ingredient, which, backtracking, DSHEA has defined all of the dietary supplement ingredients. So if a manufacturer has a new dietary supplement or ingredient, then they must notify the FDA within 75 days prior to hitting market. The FDA can respond and acknowledge their claims for a new dietary ingredient, or they can object it. And it's important to note that an acknowledgement is not approval of that. And if a manufacturer does get an objection, basically what that means is they did not provide reasonable assurance that the ingredient does not present a significant or unreasonable risk of illness or injury. For food to be generally recognized as safe, the manufacturer must prove it beyond all doubt. And if the manufacturer receives the objection for their new dietary ingredient, legally, they cannot go to market.
Gotcha. You mentioned, they don't have to really provide any evidence to the efficacy. I think that's another interesting component, especially looking at, a young service member who is technically on a budget. Yes, they're getting their own paycheck, but probably not earning the huge bucks there. And the amount of money that they could be dumping into a supplement that isn't doing anything, at the very least, not harming them, but isn't doing anything beneficial for them is definitely something to consider too.
Oh, absolutely. And with OPSS that we mentioned previously, they have a contract with the University of Mississippi where they can, if anything has a red flag or there's a certain number of adverse effects, they will test the product to kind of see what's going on underneath it. And in some cases, what they find is that there are supplements out there that are literally nothing. It's just sugar in a bottle versus the other side of the spectrum, which could have a very harmful stimulant in them. So absolutely, yes, absolutely.
That's, yeah, definitely crazy and a little bit scary too.
It is, yeah.
That maybe kind of answered my next question in regards to if there's restrictions as to what can be put inside of a supplement.
Again, short answer, yes, absolutely. The Federal Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act does define a dietary ingredient as a vitamin, a mineral, an herb, or other botanical amino acid or an enzyme. And I think it's worthwhile to note that a dietary supplement has to be ingested, which means that injectables or patches, lotions, and sprays are not covered under this act, and therefore they lack even more oversight than something that's ingested. There are ingredients that have been deemed unlawful ingredients, and for the full list, it's on the FDA's dietary supplement ingredient advisory list, but some that we can easily recognize and that are very popular with the active duty population, especially the Marine Corps, would be stimulants like DMAA or a SARM, for instance. Those are very, very popular, but again, are on that list and are prohibited for use inside of a supplement. Not to say that you can't find them though, and you can find them just about anywhere you look. So again, it's really about the consumer's diligence and knowing these things and finding a really a legitimate supplement. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when you are, having a one-on-one or teaching a class to Marines, what are some of the things that you encourage them to look for on people when they are selecting a supplement?
So my first place to start is with a third-party verification. I think that is probably the quickest one to identify. It's right there on the front of the label. And a third-party verification means another organization has reviewed the product and the ingredients within it and has not found the product to be misleading or contain any ingredients on the prohibited list. And the organizations that we mostly refer to are going to be the Banned Substance Control Group, Informed Sport, NSF Certified Sport, or the USP. And I happen to be a little bit partial to the NSF because they physically test the products. They don't just review the ingredient list. They will take samples of the batch, test it for legitimacy. And they are currently the only organization recognized by the US Anti-Doping Agency and many other professional organizations like MLB and the NCAA. They will allow their athletes to use supplements that have the NSF certified seal. And the seal, again, it's right on the front of the label. It's very easy to recognize. So that's probably the first place. The second place, I would absolutely say, look for supplements that have as few ingredients as possible. Basically when we have more ingredients, it just allows more opportunity for interactions or overdoses. A label that is free from words like proprietary blend, matrix, or complex, because within a proprietary blend, we can't guarantee what is in there. They can tell us, they're legally supposed to disclose what their proprietary blend contains, just not the amounts associated with that. So definitely stay away from those. Making sure that you can pronounce everything on the label, which even in this field is very difficult to do. And then we just want to make sure that it doesn't have any questionable claims, and the percent of daily values is about 200% or less for each ingredient.
Sure. What are some of those label claims that you warn against or that could be misleading?
So manufacturers are prohibited from claiming that a dietary supplement can treat, diagnose, cure disease. So anything on the label that suggests it can reduce pain or treat an illness is a direct violation of the act. Other claims that are questionable would be verbiage like boosts sex drive and testosterone, or maximizes recovery and growth, rapid sleep enhancer, or illegal steroid. Those would definitely be red flags in my view, and it's an indication that you're not getting a quality supplement.
when you're educating and working with the Marines in your case, as you mentioned, telling them don't take these things is the first for them to go and then seek that out. So if someone is deciding to use a supplement, what are some of the things that you recommend they do in selecting one? And we maybe have touched on some of that a little bit, but kind of a step-by-step basis for them.
Sure. So, I mean, we are advocates of food first. You can get just about everything you need, and supplements are really there if there is a deficiency in the diet. Unfortunately, they're not used in that respect. So we do want to make sure that, if I had to provide guidance, I would say start with an NSF certified product. And there's an entire list of that. They have a really beautiful website and an app. It makes it really easy to use. You can search all of the certified products. It is a trusted organization by major professional entities, and will decrease the likelihood of consuming adulterated or prohibited supplements. I would say, though, that I would suggest that the individual spends time reviewing the label and the ingredients listed. And even on that OPSS website, it's very easy to go to the prohibited list or the high risk list and just kind of match up the ingredients so that they're making sure that they're protecting themselves, their career, and their health. Yeah, and I would really also, I think the last thing I would suggest purchasing them from a reputable retailer instead of the dark web or just an unknown website. We can't always authenticate things that we buy online. So finding them in store, in person, from a reputable retailer.
Definitely, that makes sense for sure. And maybe even on the front end, look at what you're eating as far as food goes. Because as you mentioned, getting too much of something can be detrimental to your health. So if you're getting all of the vitamin and mineral that you are looking to target in your diet and then trying to supplement on top of that, I could definitely see where you can have some issues on overdoses of items.
Oh, absolutely. And we do see that quite a bit with our population. And I really feel like it's just misinformation, and it's just a lack of education, but they think that they have to have supplement X, Y, and Z when, supplement X might be doing the job of all three. Or if they have a really clean, well-rounded diet, do we even need these other items? One of the most common, I would say, are things like BCAAs. Everybody swears up and down that they must take a BCAA if they're lifting weights. And when you start to educate them on where you can find those BCAAs in food, they're all eating those types of foods. So could we, to your point earlier, could we save our money and just maybe buy some extra groceries and get it from food instead of a supplement? And we easily could.
Sure, and definitely, from my experience education, your body's going to utilize that much more effectively than in that supplement form.
Oh, hands down. Yeah, the bioavailability is always going to be greater from a food source. Absolutely. And again, I don't know that they necessarily see that. You'll ask them things like, if they eat the yogurt, do they drain it? And half of them say yes. But that's our whey protein, and mix it in instead of taking a powder form of it. There it is right there. So absolutely, get it from food.
Awesome. So when you're looking at specific supplements, if you're taking any sort of medication, big list of, these are potential side effects that you could experience. And, I'm assuming that there are potential side effects from taking a supplement too. In your experience, do you know any of the side effects of some of the commonly used supplements, whether that's BCAAs, creatine, those pre-workout type of energy boosters?
Okay, so with a few of the big ones, something like creatine, for example, usually the side effects are pretty benign. There's not going to be a lot of adverse health effects from creatine unless something crazy is happening, or they're just completely inappropriately using it. Probably the most notable and the biggest for the active duty population might be a weight gain because of the water retention. If we gain the water retention, the scale goes up. Now we're kind of forced to cut weight again. Others, things like an ergogenic aid, for instance, it really depends on what they're taking. If they're taking something, if they're drinking a moderate amount of caffeine prior to the event, they may feel more alert and less fatigued because of the way caffeine blocks our adenosine. the adenosine receptors. But if they're using an anabolic steroid, well, now we have far greater side effects and consequences from using these, especially in respects to an active duty population, which hands down, that's a prohibited item to use when we're looking at pre-workouts. These are one of the most adulterated products on the market. It's testosterone boosters, weight loss, pre-workouts. Those are the three most common tainted products on the market. So with pre-workouts, chances are the athlete is going to be consuming extremely high levels of stimulants in combination with caffeine. So of course, cardiovascular injuries would be the notable concern there. And then, I mean, we can delve deeper into that. If we're taking X amount of stimulants, are we sleeping now? And now are we opening ourselves up to fatigue-related injuries? So it's kind of a domino effect in some respect. But other things like multivitamins, you might not see adverse effects right off the bat. Those you would probably see more of a chronic use over time. You might see some negative effects. So something like vitamin A, taking too much vitamin A over long periods of time. Now we're looking at eye injuries or eye health is going to be suffering. And then your liver function, of course, liver functions. They're poor livers. So, I mean, we have to take care of it. It filters everything. So absolutely taking multiple supplements, the combination of that is still getting filtered in addition to maybe some alcohol consumption. So putting a lot of extra strain that we don't need to.
Absolutely. And I would imagine starting that stress at such a young age is, they're not maybe feeling the effects in the moment, but 10, 15 years down the line when your body's starting to shut down because of what you did at such a young age when you could just work right through it. I would imagine that, hindsight is, why did I put all that in my body?
Oh, absolutely. And I would be interested in my career to kind of look more into the VA population. The veterans are not typically a population we see a lot of, but it is really interesting. And it would be interesting to see if behavioral changes now or dietary changes now could have an impact on the healthcare system later on. I would bank that it would be a yes. And I think you hit on so many points that this population, speaking to the Marine Corps specifically, they have really, through their training, have been given this sense of invincibility, I would say. So you would have 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds who aesthetically might have the six-pack, but their cholesterol is high. And they don't necessarily see that, or they don't see the impact on their joints from excessive exercise or any of these ailments. But 10, 15 years down the road, they're definitely going to be feeling the effects of that.
For sure. And that's, I think, your role with the education is really the only thing you can do at this point, because if you're not feeling it, you're feeling good, you're able to work through it. It seems like it's working, I feel like your role is so important in providing this information and alternate sources and better choices for them, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really do feel like the younger we can get them in their career, maybe the more impact we're going to have later on. So hopefully.
For sure. I know we touched on this a little bit about, getting some of these benefits that a supplement may provide from our food sources. But for someone out there who is maybe looking, for that creatine supplement, what are food sources that could increase the amount of creatine that you're getting in your diet?
We get creatine from red meats and fish products. So, and we already have a pool of creatine within our own bodies. So by eating these foods, logically, we would increase the amount of creatine in our body, which is readily available for energy. The only type of athlete that we might see a lack of creatine in their diet would be a vegan or a vegetarian type of athlete, and in which case supplementation may be appropriate for that athlete since they're not getting it through a red meat or a fish product. Other things that we touched on earlier, caffeine can be found in chocolate, which I appreciate, but it can also be found in coffee and tea, which hands down will be a cleaner alternative to any type of energy drink on the market right now. So, just brewing a good old-fashioned cup of coffee or brewing some tea instead of reaching for our Red Bulls and our Monsters. So, and then, fruits and vegetables, plethora of vitamins and minerals. So we always encourage them to try to get the most colorful diet that they can, and eating them in different ways, cooking, non-cooking, raw, frozen, however you want to do it. And we realize that for the younger crowd, they are in a barracks room and they are relying on the chow hall to provide them with their meals. And the chow hall, you can eat very clean and be successful in the chow hall. They have the cold bar 3 times a day. They always have a lean protein and a carbohydrate source. So they can be successful. It might get a little mundane for them. So in that event, when we suggest that buying groceries, we're not going to say no to a canned vegetable. If that's the best that they can do and it stores nicely in their barracks room, absolutely. But the point is to get fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, carbohydrates from natural sources, and as minimally processed as we can.
In your experience, kind of wrapping up here, what is the response from the average population when you're disseminating this information and maybe starting to, break some of those preconceptions that, I need this supplement if I'm going to lose weight, or I need this supplement if I'm going to gain muscle? When you provide this information, whether a group setting or a one-on-one, do you feel that the message is getting through to at least a handful of them?
At least a handful, I would say. It is, it's a little bit challenging because, like I said earlier, their culture is so heavily ingrained in them. And especially when it comes to weight standards, or a Marine who's on our BCP program, the body composition program, who that individual didn't make weight. And we have this culture where it's almost shaming that individual, so that individual now has a different relationship with food. They don't want to eat in front of their coworkers because of whatever is going to be said to them. So trying to break that stigma too, the mental health is something that in the recent years too, that the DoD has just kind of started to accept, or, so trying to break some of those barriers too. I do feel like we get to a handful of them, but it is kind of a cultural shift as well. And it's a backwards concept, as you know from your education. You have to feed your body for your body to do what it wants to do. So we have these individuals going on these extremely crazy diets, low caloric diets, eating 500 to 1,000 calories a day when they are a 22-year-old male who weighs 200 pounds. It's just not conducive to them as an athlete. They're not fueling their body, so their performance in their career is going to decrease, which again, they turn to supplements for things like weight loss or energy. They need the pre-workout to power through their workout because they don't have any food in their system. So I do think as the Marine Corps, as the younger generation is kind of taking more of those leadership roles, I do see a shift, and I see a shift in policies, and even with surrounding departments and what they're trying to do in terms of exercise and nutrition going hand in hand. And with the introduction of sleep health and cognitive performance, sleep is, it has opened my eyes to how important sleep is for your body. So yeah, I think that in the coming years, we're going to just keep pushing those barriers down, and hopefully we can get more than a handful of them.
That's awesome. And I think you nailed it, that it's not isolating one behavior. It's not just, I can exercise a lot and that will take care of it. It's getting this combination of the nutrition, the sleep, the reduction of stress, even just the occupational stress that they undergo, which can influence tobacco use, which can influence drinking. This all just goes hand in hand. And yeah, you nailed it, saying that now we start to fill in where we have these gaps with supplements, which is our specific topic for this conversation. So happy to hear that, there is a light. There is some future shifts that look like they're coming with the sleep inclusion of that being examined and studied and promoted. I think that's amazing, and it's hopefully going to be very beneficial also.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Awesome. Any other thoughts here as we're wrapping up that we maybe didn't touch on that you think is important to share? I think that you were pretty thorough in all of your questions. I'm not sure. Is there anything else that you can think of? No, you hit everyone on the head and went above and beyond what I was maybe trying to pull out of you. So thank you. Definitely appreciate your time today, Heather. I think this is a lot of great information, and hopefully it helps just expand that knowledge, I guess.
Absolutely. Thank you, Darcy, so much. It is such an honor to be part of this. Thank you so much.